welcome back to the Clinical Psychology Debunked series. I'm Renae, the founder and creator behind Renae's Corner, and today we are going to be talking about coursework. And so this is a little different than the other 3 or 4 videos that are out now. This is really talking about my experiences with coursework, because I found that when I was looking for what days in the life of a clinical psychologist and what does studying to be a clinical psychologist really look like, I felt like I couldn't really find any information on it. And so this is just me talking about the types of classes that I've had in the program, and hopefully that gives you some insight into what your program will potentially look like. I'm hoping that this is going to be broad enough to capture all the different types of courses, but I'm sure I'm going to miss something, and this is just solely based off of my experience. And so hopefully you'll take that with a grain of salt, and also be sure to ask other grad students what their courses look like. Okay, so the first type of class that I wanted to talk about are lectures. These are my least favorite kind of class, just because I feel like I can pay attention in the moment and I feel like I'm learning and writing notes, and then as soon as I leave class, it's all gone. And so what this really looks like is the professor will have a prepared topic to talk about, and they will either do a PowerPoint, or they'll just, monologue, or they'll have notes, and then they'll just talk about the topic. And so for me, this looked like my research methods class, where, it really isn't a class that needs a lot of discussion. It's just, you need to know the facts, and here are the facts, and she just presented the facts like that to us. Basically, these are classes that I consider to be bigger. So in my program, it was combined with the experimental program and the IO psychology program. And so all of the first years take the class together. We sit, and basically the professor just talks about the subject and talks and talks and talks about it, take notes. Sometimes lecture-based classes have learning checks. And so that's what this professor did, but I'm not sure if that's typical in other grad school settings. I know that sometimes, at least the classes that I took in Pittsburgh that were lecture-based, basically they lectured and then they were hope you got it, here's the exam, and that was basically it. So, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about lectures. So then the next type of class are discussion-based, and these probably are my favorite and least favorite types of classes, because they are the most cognitively engaged for me, because I have to pay attention to the conversation. And so what this looks like is sometimes the professor will have questions or things that you wanted to discuss from the readings or from the articles, and then she'll bring those in, and then we'll discuss those. Or it'll look like peer-led, so sometimes the students will lead the discussion, and they will read the articles and come up with topics that we should talk about. Sometimes this looks I know in my clinical child psychology class, there was a article I was really confused about. I was can we just spend some time dissecting this article, because I am super duper lost. I have no clue what this is even saying to me. And so sometimes it looks like that, and I feel that is the most engaged learning kind for me, and I feel I get the most out of those classes. Yeah, and so that's basically how those classes are run. They're pretty straightforward, I would think. They're also you have to do work outside of class to be prepared for the discussion, so be aware of that. But those are that kind of class, discussion-based classes. There are also classes that are sort of practical classes, and so my statistics class was this, where they would spend some time giving us the background and talking about the theory and talking about all the foundational things that you need to know about statistics, and then you would go and do those things. So for my stats class here in St. Louis, they would lecture for the first half, and then we would spend the second half learning how to do the concepts in R. And then in Pittsburgh, when I took the stats class, it was kind of the same things. He would lecture for a little bit, and then we would physically do the statistical analysis by hand, and then and then also in SPSS at the same time. And so those classes are really, really hands-on and really, really engaged, because I think that for me, learning the background about stats sometimes makes it more ingrained in my head when I'm doing it. And so I I don't know, some people don't like those types of classes, but I feel like it was a good type of class. It's not my favorite, but it's like learning by doing, and I think there's something to be said about learning by doing. And then the last type of class that I've had here in St. Louis is like practicums. And so this looks like us really learning the like practical applied parts of clinical psychology, like learning disorders, learning how to, you know, diagnose those disorders, learning like differentials, like if you have, like, this is really a hard one, but like if you have anxiety and depression, like which one is the primary, which one's the secondary diagnosis? Are they like comorbid where they're both primary, or is it really the depression that's feeding the anxiety, or vice versa? We learn how to do that. We learn basically the skills to be a therapist. Like we did role plays, and we practice giving assessments to each other and practice giving assessments to undergrads. And so these are like, it's kind of like the lab-based classes, but it's 100% applied work. Like you are 100% doing the things. And so this looked like my assessment practicum. We spent a whole year just learning how to give assessments, learning how to give the WAIS, the WIS, the WIAT, the WIPSI, and just like learning how to give an assessment as a psychologist. And then we also had interventions where we learned like the foundational skills to be a therapist and foundational skills to help us, you know, I guess like ask the right questions so that we're able to come to diagnosis accurately and quickly. And then psychopathology, we really just learned the like nitty gritty of different disorders. We watched a lot of tape of people with clients and like learning how to like diagnose. We did lots of vignette studies where we looked at people's psychopathology in like a vignette, I don't know what else to call it, like in a little short story, and then we would decide what to diagnose that person with and why. And those classes I feel like are the ones where I've learned the most, just because I came in with like very, very, very minimal clinical skills. Like I had been in some trainings as a peer counselor at Hampton and just some other stuff, but I feel like the skill level was like 0. Like maybe like if the skills go up to 100, I was maybe at like a 15. And so having those practicum classes was really, really imperative for me to get the foundational skills to be an awesome therapist, an awesome assessor, an awesome psychologist in training. And so those are basically the broad classes types. If you have questions about this, I feel like I went through this really quickly, but they're not that in depth, but they are different. If you want to know what classes I've taken, I guess I can run through those really quickly. So I've taken assessment, psychopathology, interventions, research methods, a year's worth of stats. I've taken foundations of neuropsychology, I think was the name of the class, or like neuroscience. I've taken clinical child interventions, clinical child assessment, diversity, ethics and psychology. And I think that's it. I think those are all the classes I've taken. I also transferred in numerous classes from my time at Pittsburgh. So I transferred in a family, it's like family influences of child psychology class. I transferred in advanced social psych and advanced developmental or lifespan psychology. And that's basically it. Those are all the classes I've taken. I literally have one more course to take in my program here, and I will be taking that in the spring, hopefully. And that's pretty much it. Those are the classes I've taken. Those are the setups I've had. So I haven't had memory and cognition, and so I'm hoping that it'll be discussion based, because I don't know how I'm gonna learn it just lecture based, to be honest. So yeah, those are the classes. If you have questions about different class types, and also just remember that each program does their classes very differently. And so like my program does our classes this way, but like if you look at a different program, the classes will be different too. Thank you so much for checking out my video. If you have any questions, be sure to comment below. I am always responding to comments in the comment box. Be sure to like it. Be sure to share this video with other people who are interested in clinical psychology. Be sure to follow me over on my social medias. The links are down below. I'm also basically everywhere on social media at t.renae. and you can find me there if you have questions. You can also email me if you have like dire questions or something like that. And yeah, so thanks for hanging out. If you haven't watched the other videos in the Clinical Debunked series, be sure to do that, and I will see you guys next week. I think there was something else I was supposed to say, but I can't remember. So peace, and I love you all so much. Bye.